The purpose of this meeting is firstly to explore the potential for using Zoom in large meetings, including AGMs. We want to consider how Zoom might be used specifically when it comes to running an AGM, and we'll look at some of the practicalities and technicalities involved in that. And throughout, we'll be considering some aspects of inclusion and exclusion when using video conferencing and how these might be addressed. And we won't necessarily be highlighting these, but they will be very much part of what we've got to say. So what's the programme? The programme is introduction, which you're hearing now, and then Maggie is going to talk about preparation before the meeting and about the start of the meeting. Nigel will then take over to talk about what happened during the meeting and what might need to be done after the meeting. And we'll be introducing you to various ideas during all those presentations. At the end, I'll be picking up on some considerations specific to AGMs, which will be basically highlighting some of the things that have already been said. So I'm now going to stop sharing my screen and hand over to Maggie, who will take us through the first session of our session.
Again, one of the issues that we need to be very clear about is a lot of what you'll do to set up your large meetings successfully will involve doing things beforehand. Really and truly, you can't expect to complete all of the processes that you'd want to achieve, for example, with an AGM, by going straight into a Zoom meeting and say, right, hands up everybody who thinks, you know, because it's going to get a little bit chaotic for you to manage. So oddly enough, I'm going to talk about things that aren't Zoom first of all, things that aren't video conferencing, because really and truly, whatever we're talking about today can be applied to most video conferencing systems of any kind. So try and do as much of the opinion gathering and informing as possible well before your meeting, which you would anyway, which you would in your normal AGM planning. We're very, very keen not to allow digital skill to become divisive. And so we're looking for ways all the time, as indeed you will be, to include those of your members who are not digitally connected in one way or another. And it's perfectly possible to embed into an AGM that's being delivered remotely. You can embed in including those members who do not have digital connection. So the good old letterbox, hand deliveries, snail mail, they're all perfectly feasible. I know that Mo Eccles is out there. I'm looking for you, Mo, because I copied this from your excellent example, the Northwest Region AGM, whereby all of the vote gathering and opinion gathering and calls for resolutions have been done well ahead of the AGM, and people can submit those in a variety of ways. Now, what I've put there is a simple way that a smaller AGM, a smaller U3A or a U3A splitting up its tasks between members might easily achieve. Not even by posting, you can go walking round, putting things through letterboxes, agreeing a socially safe drop point for people to leave off their replies. And I say this speaking from a borough that's just gone back into lockdown, which is Blackburn, Lancashire. There we go. Another thing to do check, and this is something that people do forget, make sure you're only really letting your paid up members into your AGM. You can quite legitimately run all of this pre-communication by email through your normal email system. The only thing is that both using conventional mail, handing out sheets of paper, and using email is going to have implications for sorting and sifting. There are ways to minimise sorting and sifting if you and your members are engaging with technology. So we've parked the issue of people who aren't engaged with technology there. But if we go on and look at technological solutions, and as there are lots and lots of systems, very good systems that are available either cheaply or free. And I've just shown two of them, and I'll just describe them very briefly and what their advantages and limits are. So we've got Google Forms, which you may have heard of, and we've got SurveyMonkey, which you may have heard of. Both of these are, and systems like them are fantastic because they collate all the responses for you. That workload is much easier. I'll show you how that looks in a moment. With Google Forms, the size of the number of people that you can admit on, say, a voting system or a survey of any kind is effectively infinite. It's governed by the number of cells that there are in a spreadsheet, which is about 2 million. So for our purposes, that's going to be infinite. SurveyMonkey, if any of you have dealt with this in the past, it has for years and years been a really great free product with a lot of application. But of late, like a lot of these things, it has changed its terms and conditions, and you only get 100 responses allowed in until you upgrade. So you do have to have a paid upgrade to go further than that. And I'm not sure that there are many U3As who would be able to, there will be, but many will want more than 100 people responding. So there's two of these systems, both of which are very simple to use. Google Forms, all you need to create one is a Gmail account. You don't need anything more complex than that. SurveyMonkey, all you need to do is create yet another account to add to all your other accounts. We love creating accounts, don't we? No, yes, well, never mind. Okay, so at the back of these kind of systems, what you get, private to you as the creator, nobody else can see it till you let them, is a spreadsheet like this one. Okay, now in this one, I've blocked out personal details, but basically what you have is each one of the columns is based on a question that you've put in your questionnaire. Simple as that. So these are just examples of stuff that was gathered in a particular event that was organised. Just to emphasise, it's private. Nobody else can see it. When you enter information as a user on these forms, you press submit and it's gone. Nobody else sees it apart from the person who created the form. The person who created the form in all of these systems, or at least the systems that are worth using, can designate other people in their group or organisation to access that data. So again, for U3A committees, that's particularly useful. Okay, so that's the back office. Now, the choice of the Zoom plan that you might use is important. There are examples of U3As who have already held their AGMs successfully using the free basic plan. Now, it takes planning, it takes pre-planning, and they are small U3As, but they've done it, and they've done it constitutionally. So what we are never saying in these meetings, in these training sessions, is we are never saying you must buy X, Y, or Z. We're not saying that. We're simply pointing out what can and can't be done in different ways, okay, with different pricing plans. So, for example, with the free version of Zoom, you don't get all of the features that you get with the licensed version. Yeah, no firm anywhere is going to give you everything for nothing these days. So there we go. You can't get things like polling. When you start to pay for your, you start to pay for a licensed version of Zoom, the same meeting numbers apply to the free version. You can get 100 people in a standard meeting. Today, for example, well, say we, that's the royal we, it's Nigel that's done all the heavy lifting. Nigel has bought in an add-on that you can get to the licensed version that allows you to have up to 500 people in a meeting. And that's going to bring you up to about £60–70 for a month game. Okay, Now, you can go up, all of these firms will sell you anything you want. Okay, and you can go up and up the scale with Zoom, and you may have come across, if you have a spectacularly large U3A, you may have come across the product called a webinar. What's a webinar? What's the difference between a webinar and what we're doing now? Well, a webinar is set up specifically for very large numbers of people. You're talking thousands of people, and it's set up so that one or two people talk and you listen, right? Now, what we've done today is we've taken a standard video conference meeting on Zoom, and we've controlled it so that it's aping, it's mimicking the features that you would see on a very expensive webinar. The webinars are a much, much more expensive product. And I'm going to show you now how we've set up this meeting, how we've thought about it, how Nigel and Liz and me have thought about it to make it run like a webinar, so we can fit all of you people in and help you with this, and help you not to spend more money than you need to. What fewer people realise is that you can control the features of your meetings very, very finely by going into the website. And what I'm showing you here is pre-preparation for a large Zoom meeting. And it doesn't matter how far ahead you do this. You can do this for very, very far ahead for a meeting. But you can sign in via the Zoom website, and you can tweak the settings of your own account to make the meeting perform in a certain way. And if you're picking up a noise in the background, it's that the dustbin truck has just arrived. So I'm going to project, darlings, project. So sign in and look under settings. And so here's a screenshot of what it looks like. And you've got settings, and you've got all these various different choices here. I am not going to go through all of them. There are lots. Go through them and take a look at them for yourselves. And you'll also find that there are obviously going to be differences between the free version and the licensed version as to what's available, and we'll try and make that explicit as we go along. There are also differences between how much you pay for your license and what you might see. So let's just take a little look at that. One of the very useful ones in terms of inclusion, if you wanted to give your U3A members who don't have computer access of any kind, if you wanted to give them the chance to join in with your AGM by telephone, then you can do with the licensed version. And under the tab labeled telephone, if you go right down to the bottom of the page, you're going to find this bit where you can default the telephone numbers that appear when you schedule a meeting and you press copy to clipboard, and then you get all that gumph to put into an email. You may have noticed, if you haven't altered this, that you're getting places like San Jose and Chicago to telephone. They're no use to us. No, we want the United Kingdom phone numbers. And that's where you can change your settings to make sure that that appears. And we've got cheat sheets on the advice that we'll provide for you on how to join by telephone. It's a lot simpler than it sounds. However, do be aware that your members joining by telephone will incur a telephone call charge as per standard. Whatever contract they pay, that's the telephone charge that they will incur. So I'm not saying it's fair, I'm not saying it's right, I'm just saying it happens. Okay. Other things that you can do through the website, you can switch off video for people in advance. The very, very useful one is to switch off audio, as we did today. When you have very large meetings, obviously people are very pleased to see each other and they all want to chit chat and wave and say, hi, how are you? And with the more people you have, the more difficult that's going to become to control without frankly being quite rude. So, you know, we don't want to be rude to people, but if we make it clear in advance, as it was done for you today, and a reminder at the beginning that when you join, you'll be on mute, please don't try and unmute yourself, then people know where they stand. This is incredibly useful, not just for large meetings, but for all sorts of meetings, you know, things like language groups, all sorts of groups that have discussions as part of their basis. You can alter the settings of your Zoom meetings to automatically record all of the chat. Now, I forgot to forewarn Liz and Nigel today. Somebody raised an issue here about that, which was, what about freedom of information, GDPR, privacy? Should we be forewarning people that we are recording chat? Probably, not thought about it before. So take this as your warning. We're recording chat. Is that fair enough? I hope so. Okay. And what it does is it automatically generates a very tiny little text file. I mean, tiny in terms of the number of bits it occupies on your computer. It's a nice skinny little file, and every little bit of chat is saved. So why is that of any use? Well, in an ordinary group meeting, you've got a bit of a record of what went on and where you might pick up next time. In an AGM, you're fulfilling that stipulation from the Charities Commission that says record the decisions that you take and the reasons why you take them. So there you've got a whole lot of evidence, print it off, stick it in the file, done. Evidence done. You know, it's just one less thing to try and get your minutes secretary, your poor beleaguered minutes secretary, to have to do. And there are tools that Nigel is going to explain particularly, like the polling tool and the breakout rooms tool, which whoever is in charge of the Zoom account, they will have to enable those tools, and then they will go ahead. Polling is particularly useful and very, very simple to use in terms of running large meetings like AGMs. You can also control whether people can share the screen. And I'm just going to draw your attention to closed captioning. You get this in the free version and in the licensed version. The closed captioning means that you can tweak your Zoom, let's call it your Zoom plugs, right? So that you can plug in somebody to do captioning. It doesn't of itself provide captions. So when you've enabled closed captioning, what you then have to do is manacle a stenographer to a desk, which is always one option. Or you may have a very friendly stenographer, a touch typist who wants to do the job for you. That's fine. You can buy one in at a great deal of money, but you need somebody to either type what is heard, or you can acquire third-party software that will plug in to your Zoom account. And I'm sure you've all seen the delights of what third-party software can do. There are some hilarious and very rude videos on YouTube about voice-activated software, and I don't want any of you to watch them because they're naughty, but they get words wrong and wind people up. So, but this is a very important point of inclusion for people with hearing loss. So I'm just drawing your attention to it. You can also get people to help you. Now, the alternative hosts one is, the bigger your meeting, the more I would urge you to think about an alternative host setup. You buy your own license, so your $11.99, excuse me, plus that or whatever, and then you can add people on. It's another $11.99 for each one, plus that, okay? But those people, or that person, has parallel rights to your own. Now, why is this important? Well, it's important because you will probably put a lot of resource and effort into setting up something like an AGM. And if in setting up that AGM, come the day you have some kind of emergency or are incapacitated, or the internet to your property miraculously is cut off or whatever, things happen, this person can open, start, run, organise and carry on with the meeting exactly as the original organiser would have done. So it's a kind of belt and braces. You only get it with the licensed version. You can also establish people as co-hosts, and Nigel's going to model this for you in the next presentation. You can do quite a lot of this organising ahead of a meeting in the downloaded app rather than on the website. If you're worried about going to the website, then explore the downloaded app first. And you can see you've got the ability to turn off video, you've got the ability to tweak audio. And with the downloaded app, once you're into your meeting and you've opened your meeting, then under the security shield, you get these other features which you'd probably want to then quickly untick. For example, you'd probably want to stop in a large meeting people from sharing their screens. You'd probably want to stop them from unmuting themselves. So there are all sorts of ways of going at the organising. You have to have a look for yourselves, practice and practice, and see how it all goes for you. And on that note, I'm going to hand over to Nigel. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Maggie. Thanks, Liz, for the introduction. I'm Nigel Plant. As they've said, I'm from U3A Todmorden in West Yorkshire. So we're now going to talk about what happens during the meeting and after the meeting. Share screen. Right, hopefully you can see that. So during the meeting, you've got controls available to you, and there's some things that you might want to do during the meeting. We're going to look at how you can manage interruptions. Maggie's already touched on this. Using the chat, which most of you seem to have got the hang of quite well. Screen sharing, which is what I'm doing now. Running polls, other interactions, and a look again at co-hosts. One thing which is useful if you've forgotten to deny participants the ability to unmute themselves is the ability to mute everybody. If two people in the same house have got devices connected and they've both got their audio on, you will get feedback, and it can be, in a big meeting especially, it can be quite difficult to work out where it's coming from. So you can just mute everybody by going to the bottom of the participants list, choose mute all, and then, as Maggie said, under the security icon, you've got the ability to stop people unmuting themselves again. You can also stop video, which we've done to a few people who forgot to turn their video off as asked. There isn't a way to do this for everybody as there is for audio, and there isn't any way to disallow people to stop turning it back on again. Some people seem to think that if they can't be seen, then they're not part of the meeting somehow. You know, they think it's a two-way thing, but as you're all aware, you're all seeing this, and you're all still very much in the meeting. You find the stop video at the top right of an individual's square in their celebrity square view. There's three little dots, and the top option in that is to stop video. Using the chat function, lots of different ways of using this. Clicking on chat, you can do it from the menu bar at the bottom of your screen. You can chat to an individual by clicking on their square and choosing chat from that drop-down menu, the same one where we had stop video. And the default, if you use the menu at the bottom of the screen, is that everyone sees the message. It goes to everybody. If you want to send a message to an individual, either use the 3 dots in the top right of their square, or you can, if you've got a long list, if you just start typing their name where it says send chat to, then you'll find them in the list and you can just send them to an individual. For this meeting, it's better if you send the chats to everyone. It makes it easier for Liz to pick them up and deal with them in the Q&A at the end. Screen sharing is a very useful function in Zoom. It works very well. It's very good for groups, obviously. I'm the convener for a photography group and we use it all the time to share our photographs during lockdown. It's what I'm doing now, sharing a presentation with you. Like a lot of the controls in Zoom, there's a little arrow to the right of the button or the icon in the control bar. That gives you access to more options. When you click on that screen sharing icon, you get a very confusing, or what can be a very confusing screen. Top tip here is, before you start your Zoom meeting, if you know you're going to be sharing your screen, is to only have open on your desktop or on your computer those things which you're going to need to share. It can be very easy to click on the wrong icon in the screen, and nobody needs to see your shopping list or your holiday photos or worse. So just try and minimize the clutter, and then you won't inadvertently share the wrong information. A couple of things to think about whether you need to tick or not. There's a couple of boxes at the bottom of the screen. It's about sharing your computer sound and optimizing the share for video. If you're going to be showing a video or sharing a YouTube video or anything like that, you need to check those boxes so that you're sharing the sound from your computer and not the microphone. Go to the next thing. Polls. So Maggie, you have to set up polls in advance. You have to do that through the website as well. So once you've scheduled your meeting, you go to your meetings on the website, and you'll find, if you scroll right down to the bottom of the list, you find there the option to add polls. You can have as many polls as you would like set up. I haven't found any practical limit to it, and you can launch them then from the drop-down menu that appears when you click on the icon in the toolbar. It doesn't appear if you haven't set up any polls, obviously. You can rerun the same poll more than once, but if you do that, you won't be able to get a report from the first time you run the poll. Now, one thing which is maybe a bit peculiar to running something like an AGM for a U3A is that you've got likely to have some members who are cohabiting. Now, if they're both logged into the AGM on the same device, then you take a vote, then it's only going to record one vote for a couple. Now, what we suggest you would do in this case is actually set up 2 identical polls and call one member 1 and call the other one member 2 for each motion that you're going to need a vote on, and then run them sequentially and say, right, the first person in the household votes in the first poll and the second person in the household votes in the second poll. So other interactions, at any time you can go to the interactions reactions icon at the bottom right of your toolbar. You can give a thumbs up to your presenter to say that you're very impressed with what they're doing and pleased, or you can give them a virtual round of applause. Co-hosts, right? So as Maggie said, you can make people co-hosts. So I'm the host for this meeting. Maggie and Liz are both co-hosts. You do this in the meeting. You can't do it in advance, unlike alternate hosts, which you can set up ahead of time. Broadly, co-hosts have the same kind of options and powers as the host. They can admit people from the waiting room. So if you've got a big meeting, you need somebody just to keep an eye on that while you're doing other things and let people in. They can mute all or individuals. They can stop video, and if someone's being really disruptive, they can kick them out of the meeting. After the meeting, have a cup of tea, and then you need to find your polling reports. Again, if you voted on a motion at the AGM, you'll need these as an audit trail to show that the motion was carried by a massive majority. You'll find these in your account on the web. At the bottom of the admin section, there is a section that says reports with a red ring around it. You click on that, and then on the right you get a whole long list of reports. Mostly they're to do with managing corporate accounts where you've got lots of users. But the report we want is about the meeting. So if you click on that, two sorts of reports you can get. You can get a registration report if you required people to register for the meeting. We're not suggesting that that's a good idea. But next to that, you can see the polling report, and you can search within a date range to find your report if you've got lots of meetings. Once you've found it, it will appear in the list below, and then you can click on the button to the right which says generate the report. After an amount of time, depending how busy the server is, it will come up and say it will change to download once you've done that. So you download the report and you get this. It looks like this. So you can see immediately that the username, there were an awful lot of people in our meeting called guest. And that is the end of my bit. And I'm going to then hand back to Liz.
Right, back to me. There's quite a few questions that will be coming up in the Q&A, but what I want to do first of all is to look at some of the things which are specific to AGMs. I'm not pretending to be a constitutional lawyer of any sort. So what I'm going to be saying is very much things to think about rather than this is how it is. But again, I'm going to share some slides on the screen which take us through the things I want to cover. Yeah, so some considerations relevant to AGMs. The first thing, obviously, is there's a need to think about legalities. In England and Wales, and I think Northern Ireland, but I'm not absolutely sure if it's the Charity Commission that deals with charity law in Northern Ireland, the Charity Commission has indicated that holding AGMs online is acceptable, but please check your constitution just in case you've written something into it which has said that this is not allowed, because then you may have an issue. But if you decide that you're going to have an online AGM, then it's necessary for your committee to pass a resolution saying that this is the approach that you have decided to take and why you have decided on this approach. And at the moment, it's quite obvious the reason why you've decided on this approach. People are just not allowed to go to big meetings, so the only way you can have a meeting is doing something different. But apart from legalities, there's other things which is important to think about when planning that AGM. And the first is planning for the unexpected. And unexpecteds do happen. Leaving on one side the possibility of the network going down, which would then lead us all in a bit of a mess. It's things like the sudden illness, for instance, of the chair. And we've already spoken about appointing additional hosts and about appointing co-hosts in meetings. Do think about what could go wrong, and then think about what you can do to mitigate whatever it is that could go wrong. And what could go wrong may be different for different situations. So look at it very much in terms of what might go wrong in your situation. Think about whether you want to take a recording of the meeting. Now, the reason for taking a recording is not because you want to spend the next rest of the year looking at the recording and thinking we could have done that better or we could have done that worse or whatever. But it's more thinking about the needs of the person taking minutes of the meeting. And I'll come back to this again in a minute, but taking minutes of an online meeting is very different from taking minutes of a face-to-face meeting. And it may be that your minute secretary will be more than glad to have somewhere to refer to just to make sure they've got detail correct. We've spoken about voting, and that is going to come up on another slide in a minute. But the alternative host, yes, we've spoken about co-hosts. We've said there's a difference between the two, and I'm not going to reiterate what others have said. But the key thing about an alternative host is that advantage that the meeting can still take place if the host is not able to be there because of unforeseen circumstances. And if it's a big meeting that you've planned for, you don't want to find that you suddenly can't do it because the chair's dog has been taken sick and has had to go to the vet urgently and there's nobody there to open the meeting. On the other hand, as we've already said, if you're going to have an alternative host, that host has to be named on the account, and that does incur an additional cost. But that could be a cost that you only have for that month. So do think about how you mitigate against problems. And then back to the minutes and agendas and things. A meeting needs an agenda. How are you going to circulate it? Maggie's spoken quite a lot about different ways of getting messages out to people using both hard copy and electronics. Are you going to circulate the agenda in a similar way? If you're going to have the agenda available at the meeting, given that you can't hand out bits of paper, how are you going to make it available? It could be tricky, and it may be because you will be wanting to do some things using screen sharing, so you're probably going to be switching from one screen share to another within the meeting if you're wanting to show the agenda. I said a minute or two back that a formal minute is required for an AGM, and this is a legal requirement that there should be minutes of a meeting, and those minutes need to be improved at the AGM the following year. And though it is quite possible for somebody, particularly if you've got a skilled typist or shorthand taker or something, to take some kind of minutes on the spot. But most of us are relying on people who are taking notes and hoping that they've got them right, while at the same time trying to follow and possibly participate in the meeting. So it can be very useful to whoever the minute secretary is if they have a recording, so that they can check facts and make sure that whatever they're putting in the minutes is what was actually said or done, rather than inventing what they think happened. I regularly take minutes for meetings, and it's a nightmare trying to remember what was actually there, and recordings are extremely useful. But if you are going to make a recording of any sort, those attending the meeting need to be informed that a recording is being made, need to be informed of how that recording will be used, and what will happen to that recording after the use that it has been made for is no longer relevant. So that if it's simply a case of taking recordings for the minute secretary to be able to write the minutes, then the meeting needs to know that once the minutes have been drafted, the recording will be disposed of. Voting. Yes, we've talked about voting through polling, and you've already seen that polling by Zoom is 1 vote per attendee. Unless you think about how you're going to mitigate this, you exclude possibly other members of the household from having a vote if they're sharing the same device. And as Nigel has said, it is possible to run parallel polls, run one poll and then run another immediately afterwards, and then do some adding up of the figures. And that works fine if you're looking at people who can access Zoom or whatever other application you may be using over the internet. But there are a fair number of people around who have not got internet access. Some of them may be attending by telephone but would not have access to the polling tool. And it might be that you want to consider whether you offer the opportunity to vote by email or post in advance of the meeting rather than voting at the meeting. Or you may want to consider whether there's some way of mixing electronic and in-person voting. The problem with that is how you're going to actually work out who has already voted and who has a right to vote at the meeting. So I think that's one that would bend most brains trying to work out the best way of dealing with it. But the key thing to remember is that no option is completely problem-free. Whether we like it or not, there probably will be some people who don't get the opportunity to vote. But the aim should be to try to avoid disenfranchising members unintentionally. And in fact, there is the opportunity in looking at running an AGM in a different way, of looking at how we can enfranchise members who might not be able to attend a face-to-face meeting under normal circumstances. So whatever we do, there's pros and cons. So thank you very much, and all the very best with your large meetings and AGMs.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.